All right, so we're going to get into some word problems that apply perfect squares, okay, and their square roots. All right, so let's look at number one. It says a worker on the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge in New Mexico drops a boat that lands in the water 576 feet below. So you got this person up on a bridge. Here's my little person. They're dropping this boat. This boat goes down so far, it drops into some water, but it goes down 576 feet. Okay. It says the equation d divided by 16 equals to t squared represents the distance in feet called d. So the distance is called d. That an object falls in t seconds. So t is going to be seconds. How long, which is how many seconds, does it take the boat to hit the water? Well, we're going to use the equation. Use the equation. So we get d, which represents distance, divided by 16 equals to time squared, and time is in terms of seconds. Now, I'm not going to want seconds squared. I'll fix that in a minute. But the distance that the boat drops is 576 feet. So I am going to replace the distance with 576. So I'm going to take 576 and divide it by 16. And that'll give me time squared. But, I don't want time squared. I just want the seconds. Okay, or just time. All right, so let's take 16. See how many times it goes into 576. 16 won't go into 5, but 16 will go into 57. 3 times, that's 48. That's a 4, and that's a 17. 17, let me make that look a little better. Okay, that's going to be a 17. 17 minus 8 is 9. Let me do this. And then bring this down. And 16 goes into 96 6 times. So that means when I divide this, I get 36. So 36 is equal to t squared, okay? Now to undo a square, we talked about this yesterday. To undo a square, we take the square root, okay? So take the square root of both sides. I'm not going to be putting plus or minus in front of it because I know time, which is seconds, okay, can't be negative. So don't use that plus or minus symbol. So it's going to take 6 seconds for the boat to hit the water, okay? Remember, you don't want time squared. You just want time, which is in terms of seconds. So that's why you take the square root. All right, how do you know the value of t above can't be negative? Well, time cannot be negative, so you don't use the plus or minus. Okay, let's take a look at 3. Brianna is solving this equation. Her work is shown below. Is she right? And then you're going to explain. So let's take a look. Okay, she wants to solve the equation for t. All right, so if you solve the equation for t, you want to take the square root of both sides. So she took the square root of t squared and the square root of 36 over 121. So the square root of t squared is t. That's correct. And then the square root of 36 over 121 is 6 over 11. Okay. So yes, she did everything correct. Some students would think that T stands for time, but this is just a regular algebraic expression or equation. So with a regular algebraic equation, what you want to do is make sure you solve for 2 answers and use the plus or minus, okay? So whenever you're solving a regular algebra equation, you want to use the plus or minus. Okay, yes, I'm going to put T is simply a variable in an algebraic equation. I'm going to put this little symbol. This little symbol means therefore. Therefore, there should be two answers. T does not represent time in this scenario. So I don't have to worry about not putting the plus or minus. I can put it. Okay, let's take a look at number 4. Yesterday, there were B milligrams, the MG stands for milligrams, of bacteria in a lab. Okay, so yesterday I know that there were B. I'm going to write that down. There were B milligrams. All right, and then today, there are B squared milligrams of bacteria. That means if you want to get from yesterday to today, all you have to do is square yesterday's. For example, if yesterday were 5 milligrams, then today there are 5 squared milligrams or 25 milligrams. Okay, give you another one. Yesterday, if there were 12 milligrams, then today there are 12 squared milligrams or 144 milligrams. Okay. All right, but this thing also goes backwards. Suppose I gave you today. Suppose I said there are 36 milligrams today. How many were there yesterday? So if you want to go from today back to yesterday, you're going to do the inverse of squaring. Instead of squaring, you're going to square root it. The inverse of squaring is square rooting. Square root today's. And these types of questions are going to be in your test, okay? So I'm going to take the square root of 36. So I know yesterday that it had to be 6 milligrams, okay? So let's take a look at this question. It says there are 400 milligrams of bacteria today. How many milligrams of bacteria were there yesterday? So I'm going to start off over here with 400 milligrams. And I want to work my way to today. So I'm going to take the square root of 400. The square root of 400 is simply 20. So my answer is 20 milligrams, okay? All right, let's take a look at 5. All right, so this is a weird looking equation, but I'm going to break it down. All right, the equation P squared equals to 16A represents the perimeter, which is going to be P, of a square with an area, which is going to be A. Okay, so when you see this, this just means perimeter squared. And this A just means area. So this is 16 times the area. So the perimeter squared equals to 16 times the area. Okay, let's continue to read the second sentence. A square stained glass window has an area of 4 square feet. So it says, what is the perimeter of the window? Well, it gave me the area. In other words, it gave me the variable A. So I get to take A out and replace A with 4. So we have P squared equals to 16. What does it mean when it's mashed together right here? It means times. 16 times the area. Well, the area is 4. So P squared equals to 64. And what I do now to undo this square is that I take the square root of both sides. Now, since it's asking for perimeter is length. So don't put the plus or minus in front of it. Length can never be negative. So the perimeter is 8 feet. You just follow the equation. Okay, these are fairly simple. We're not going to use cardstock pieces to build anything. I just want to figure out what the side length is of a square. I'm going to tell you that a square has an area of 16 square units. What is the side length? Okay, so I need you to write this in your notes if you have forgotten. If given the area and you want to get to side length, then this is all you do. You take the square root of the area to get to the side length. So I'm going to take the square root of 16. So the side length is, I'm going to put SL for side length, is 4 units. Okay. Here, if you have a square with an area of 9 units, what's the length of the side or side length? Well, the square root of 9 is 3. Again, length can't be negative, so don't put plus or minus. Okay, that's easy. All right, on 4, a square has an area of 4 square units. What's the length of a side? The square root of 4 is 2. That would be 2 units. All right, 9, the length of each side of a square measures S units long. S, it's all the same, okay? The area of the square is 49 square inches. What's the length of one of the sides? So you can take the square root of 49. So the length of one of the sides is just 7 inches, guys. So that means S equals 7. 7 IN for inches. 10. A square has an area of 81 square feet. What's the side length? Well, you just take the square root of 81. That's just, the side length is 9 feet. That's all you do. Simple, simple, simple. All right. Number 1 here, I got a few more word problems. It says City Park is a square piece of land with an area of 10,000 square yards. What is the length of the fence that encloses the park? Okay. So if you're looking for what encloses a park, if I want to enclose, put fence around this whole thing, because to enclose means to go all the way around. That means I am simply looking for I need to find the perimeter of the park. That's it. To find the perimeter, the first thing you need is the side length. So we need the side length, okay? So after you figure out what the side length is, then you just know that you have 4 of these because it's a square, so all of them are the same. So then after you figure out the side length, you add, let me put add, I'll put all first. Add all the sides. Okay, now just keep in mind, the only thing I have is the area. So what do you do with area to get to what I need first, which is the side length? So let's go back up here. What did I say you do with area to get to the side length? Well, you take the square root of the area to get you to the side length. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the square root of this. So the square root of 10,000 is just 100. So the side length is 100 yards. Okay, but I need the perimeter because I'm not trying to go around just one part of the park. I'm trying to enclose it, which is all the way around. So that's 100, that's 100 yards, that's 100 yards, and this is 100 yards, okay? So add up all those. I could just do 100 4 times, or just I could do 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100. But either way, you're going to get 400 yards, okay? I'm going to do YDS for yards. So the length of the fence to enclose it, or the perimeter, is 400 yards. That's how much fencing you need. Okay, we're going to skip number 2. Not going to do that one. All right, let's go to 3. 3 says a scientist finds the temperature of a sample at the beginning of an experiment is T degrees Celsius. Now, I'm going to tell you something about temperature. Temperatures can be positive or temperatures can be negative. So we probably need to use plus or minus. You're going to have 2 answers for this. All right, it says, so in the beginning, it's just so many degrees Celsius. That's what T means. After an hour, whatever that original temperature has been squared. Okay, so for instance, if it starts off at 5 degrees, If it begins at 5 degrees Celsius, an hour later, it's going to be 5 squared or 25 degrees Celsius, if that makes sense. All right, so let's take a look at A. It says if the temperature after an hour, okay, so after an hour, the temperature has already been squared. So what did we square to get that 81? Okay, but this says what are two possible original temperatures. So what could the beginning temps have been? So all you do is you take the square root of 81, but temperature can be positive or negative, so I'm going to put plus or minus. So that means it could be 9 degrees Celsius or it could have been negative 9 degrees Celsius. Okay, because you can take 9 and squared or you can take negative 9 and squared and still get 81, okay? All right, what's the difference between the two possible original temperatures? In other words, what's the difference between 9 and negative 9? Difference in math means I need to subtract the two. When you subtract, put your larger number first. 9 is bigger than negative 9. 9, subtract the other number, which is negative 9. This goes right, and this is the same as a plus, so it goes right. So the difference is an 18-degree difference. All right, I'm going to have you do 4 and 5. And when you finish 4 and 5, then call me to your desk because I want to check to see if you understand them, okay? All right, guys. Thank you.